Story 1. Would I be in a hole for going to the funeral of my ex-girlfriend's brother and missing my sister-in-law's wedding? I 25 male and am in a relationship with Amelia, 26 female, for 2 years. She is wonderful, we live together, and I think we are close to engagement. In the past I was in a relationship with Julia, a 25-year-old female. We met in high school and had a very passionate relationship for 5 years, but it didn't work. In the end, it got quite heated between us and even with her parents, so we blocked each other. Julia had a brother Dan, 2 years younger, and we always shared a special bond. Like me, he wanted to become a doctor, and I helped him with med school. Even after the breakup, we stayed close. Julia and their parents weren't aware he was definitely very important for me, almost like a younger brother. Unfortunately, Dan had a car crash and died last week. I didn't know until Julia came to my home to announce 2 days ago. I am absolutely devastated. She apologized because she wasn't aware that Dan and I were still close. She also thanked me for being there for him when he was fighting depression, and that all her family would like to see me at his funeral next Sunday in their hometown, which is a 7-hour drive. I replied that I wasn't sure if I could come because I'm running low on money at the moment and my car will be at the mechanic's. She said that she could drive me there, but she had to be there 2 days earlier to help with the organization. I said that I will think about it. We exchanged numbers and hugged. She cried a little and said that she was sorry for all the things of the past and was happy to see me again. Amelia came home at this moment and I explained the situation when Julia left. She already knew about my past relationship with Julia and my friendship with Dan. Amelia told me that I wouldn't be able to go to the funeral because her sister is the same day, and we both agreed to go. I said that I need a bit of time to process all that. The following morning I had a very emotional phone call with Dan and Julia's parents. They apologized for the past and thanked me for being there for Dan, that they would always consider me family from now on, and they insisted that they'd like to host me for the funeral to save me the cost. After reflection, even if it sucks for Amelia and the wedding, I cannot imagine missing Dan's funeral. I talked with my company residents, the head of the unit, and they're okay with me missing a few days in cover for me. When I told my decision to Amelia yesterday, she blew up and said that I'm being a huge dick to ditch her and her family in favor of my exes. She said that I committed to the wedding and I couldn't leave her alone to reconnect with my ex. We had a big argument and haven't talked much since. I had some messages from her friends and her sister. They said that I'm a major a-hole for abandoning my girlfriend in favor of my ex. I was sure that I was making a good choice, but I'm starting to feel bad and second-guess myself. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments before reading the update. This person says, I'm going to say not to a hole because I understand wanting to be at Dan's funeral, and it's not like you're missing the wedding to go party with friends or something. But I can also understand why your girlfriend would be upset. You're going with your ex a few days early and staying with your ex-girlfriend's family, who you didn't get along with in the past to the point of blocking them on your phone. Would you be totally fine with her missing a hopefully once-in-a-lifetime family event to be with an ex for a funeral and being with them for a few days, not just a few hours? I'm not going to sugarcoat this, there's a chance you come back from the funeral with her stuff moved out. I agree with not the a-hole. I wanted to say you would not be the a-hole because in a perfect world going to the funeral would not be a problem and everyone would understand why it would be so important for you to go. However, there are definitely a lot of complicated feelings involved. Your girlfriend is disappointed you're backing out of the wedding and jealous you are going to be with your ex. When I'm just reading this online, I can absolutely see your point and think, yeah, of course, he should go. But if I'm honest with myself, if I was in your girlfriend's shoes, I don't know if I would be able to rise above those emotions and think the same. So you were definitely not the a-hole for wanting to go. And while it would be nice for your girlfriend to be able to also see it that way, I certainly can't call her an a-hole for feeling disappointed and jealous over the situation. I hope you both can take a step back and work through communicating through this and figure something out. It is definitely a tough spot to be in. This person says exactly. Also, a funeral is more for the living than the dead. I understand where Op is coming from, but I also understand why his girlfriend is upset. I would also say not the whole, but Op can expect this to potentially affect his relationship with his partner if he does go. OP says Dan's parents are good people. I spent a ton of time at their home or even on family vacations with them. That's how I became close friends with Dan. We had arguments towards the end of my relationship with Julia, but I don't resent them. They were trying to stand up for their daughter, and to be honest, I share some of the blame too. Julia and I were a bit immature and had the bad habit of involving others in our problems. I know that it's easy to say that in my position, but I would also let my girlfriend go to a funeral with her ex because I have total trust in her. This person says you would not be the a-hole for making this choice, but honestly, neither will your girlfriend be when she ends your relationship. You are making a choice to prioritize an old relationship versus your current one. Funerals are not for the deceased, they are for the ones left behind. You will not disparage your friend if you do not go to the funeral. If you choose the funeral, there is a good chance you will be terminally poisoning your relationship. Now for the update. First of all, thanks for all the comments. It has really helped me to gain perspective on my situation. Nearly 4 months later, here's the update. After intense reflection, I decided to stick with my prior engagement and go to the wedding. I called Julia to explain briefly the situation, also called her parents to apologize and say that I will pay my respects to them and to Dan's grave once I get my car back. They are very understanding. Emilia was still mad at me though. She blamed me for being tempted by Julia and her family again after the wedding for pulling the long face. I was still very hurt by Dan's death, so yeah, I wasn't at my best. Our relationship was really going sour. I felt she wasn't supporting me while I was grieving my friend, but she wasn't on the same page. I started to see a new side of her, and perhaps we weren't meant to be. After another argument, we broke up. 1 to 2 weeks after the wedding. She tried to salvage a relationship, but the damage was permanent. At this point, I was at my lowest, totally devastated. In just a few weeks, I lost my friend and my relationship. I was really in a bad place. A few days after I got my car back, luckily it was a minor issue. It didn't cost me much. Once I got a weekend off, I visited Dan's grave and his parents. They gifted me his stethoscope. It meant a lot to me. Julia was also there, and we all remembered our memories with Dan. Very nice and emotional moments. I felt very bad about missing the funeral, but his family convinced me that what mattered was how I was present for him during his life. After that trip, I started to hang out with Julia again. It just happened naturally, even after several years. I have to admit that we still have a deep bond, nothing romantic though. We are both grieving Dan, and I just ended my relationship with Emilia. We both agreed that rushing into a relationship would be a bad idea. Currently, we enjoy spending time as friends. Step by step, I started to feel better. The pain is still there, but I'm learning to live with it. I tried to enjoy my life to improve as a man and as a resident every day. I'm lucky to have a great support group to rely on, especially one of my co-residents who really stepped up and is becoming an awesome friend. I'm currently living with him until I find a new apartment. I had almost no contact with Emilia since the breakup, probably for the best. I was quite bitter at one point, wondering how I went from thinking to propose to her to breaking up in just a few weeks, but with time I got closure. I know I have my fair share of responsibility, but it is what it is. The past is the past, and now I look to the future with hope and optimism. Story 2. Update: Am I the a-hole for not telling my roommate I own the house? Original post. Brief backstory. About a year ago, my last remaining grandparent passed away, and my father inherited all assets including a house. I've been saving for a nice down payment of at least 50% so I could have a lower mortgage payment each month, thus allowing me to save money for travel. When my father inherited this house, which he had no interest in moving into yet, he offered to sell it to me for slightly below market rate, with the caveat that he and my stepmother would eventually move into the basement apartment. I agreed because they are both incredible people who are not at all invasive and would give me my privacy if they lived there, so I paid a 60% down payment, financed the rest, and moved in. Present day. About 6 months ago, I started considering renting out the finished basement apartment. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room, and a small kitchenette, sink, fridge, microwave, but no oven. A friend of mine said his brother was moving to my city and needed a place. He's a brand new teacher and doesn't make great money, so he needed a place that wasn't expensive. I offered to let him rent my basement for way less than the market rate, $650, which would include utilities. He readily accepted and signed a year-long lease. Well, a few days ago, he asked if he could start paying the landlord directly instead of giving me rent money each month. I was under the impression my friend had told him I own the house, so I was confused, and I told him we don't have a landlord and that I'm the owner. He got very upset and screamed at me for lying for over 6 months and taking advantage of him by making him pay so much in rent. For the record, an apartment similar to the one my house would be well over twice what he's paying me, closer to 3 times for something as nice. He asked me how much my mortgage he was covering, and I said, why does that matter? You're getting a nice quiet place to live, access to a full kitchen and laundry room, and you're paying an amount that you can afford. My personal finances aren't really a factor here. He stormed out of the room and slammed the basement door. He's still not speaking to me. I asked a few other friends and some family members, and most said I'm wrong for having him cover my mortgage payments. Only a few say that I'm in the right, so am I the a-hole for having my roommate cover $650 of my $775 a month mortgage. Ida. He has a lease, and I won't be evicting him over this alone. If he does any damage or becomes hostile, I'll look at the eviction process, but for now he will remain unless he chooses to break the lease, which I'd allow him to do so if he wants. He also did not bother to read the lease before signing. The lease clearly states I'm the homeowner. I didn't trick him or keep information from him. He simply did not read what he was signing. I didn't get the house for almost free as some people choose to believe. Leave. My father sold it to me about 75% of its value, more or less as an advance on rent he and my stepmother will pay when they move in here in a few years. We already agreed they won't pay monthly rent, but will contribute to utilities and groceries at the time. I also made it 60% down payment, so I have quite a bit invested as well at paying about $500 a month out of pocket for taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities, etc. Now for the update. I intended to speak to him over the weekend, but he never returned my text asking when a good time to discuss things would be. So Sunday afternoon I sent a text stating I would be entering the basement at 6 p.m. Monday evening. He never replied. When I went into the basement, some of his belongings were there, but some weren't. Bed was there, but no dresser or side tables, and the second bedroom he was using as an office has nothing but boxes. The kitchenette was disgusting. The carpets were filthy, and the walls had dents and divots in them, and the paint. I left him a note stating he needs to do some repairs and clean the kitchenette so as not to attract vermin. Then I went back upstairs. Well, he came back in today, early this morning, and was fuming at me for entering the basement without permission. I told him I had given him more than 24 hours notice per the lease via text message before entering his area. His reply was that he didn't get that because he blocked my numbers. So somehow, it's still my fault for not informing him. I would be down there. I asked him if he intends to stay out the lease, or if he wants to break it. He said he's leaving and will live in his car until he finds a new place. I told him that's fine, and that if he has all of his belongings out by the end of the month, I won't make him pay September and half of October's rent, as the lease requires, and I'll refund the days he isn't there. He tried to tell me he doesn't need to pay that rent because he has 45 days to vacate, but that's only the notice period if he intends to leave. The lease still requires rent for those 45 days, so he's mad about that. I told him I'd be kind by letting him out early with zero financial repercussions. He was also told that he's required to leave the apartment as clean as it was when he moved in, which was spotless since I had it professionally cleaned prior to his lease beginning, or he would not get his deposit back. He's throwing a tantrum about that too. He seems to be working on clearing the rest of his stuff out now. I told him when he's done, send me notice in writing, text, or email, and I'll send him a refund for the days in August he isn't occupying the apartment. I have indoor Ring cameras that I turned off when he moved in, but I've turned them back on until he's gone. I don't trust that he won't do more damage. Right now I've locked myself in my office on the second story since he's really mad and was throwing things around in the basement in the main kitchen. His brother and sister-in-law are also coming over in the next hour or so because I don't feel entirely safe being alone in the house with him. As soon as he gives me notice that he's completely vacated the apartment, I'll be changing and deleting all the password codes for the deadbolts, alarm system, internet, etc., so he can't access anything at all. I'm ready to be done with him and to feel safe in my own home again. Thanks to all that read the original post on The Hole, I'll post any additional updates here on my profile, though I hope this is the end of it. More info from Oop's comments. Oop, he made some vague threats, nothing I feel that I should call the police over, but I still let his brother know just in case. My friend's wife is mad and is on her way over. My friend will be here after he finishes work. This person says reality is going to slap him so hard in the face. Oop, I think it already has. He moved all his stuff out and notified me of his complete vacancy of the apartment and is already whining to his brother about not being able to find anything online in his price range, which I'm told is $800 a month with utilities included. He won't find that where we are unless he shares a bedroom with at least one other person. No, I had it written that he only had to give me 45 days notice before moving, unless I gave him written permission to end it early. In this case, I told him in writing that he could break the lease without penalty. I don't need the rental income per se. It was just nice to have. I'll be fine without it for a while until I decide if I want a new tenant. And finally his comment 3 months later, the former tenant begged to come back, but I declined. I actually offered him the apartment for over market value. MV is about $2,500. And I told him he could come back for $3,300 to make him go away. He also declined my offer. No idea where he ended up, but after some of the names he called me after I wouldn't let him back in, I don't care. I'm still good friends with his brother. He's a good guy who laughed when I told him about my offer of $3,300 a month. I didn't ask where the former tenant landed. I'm sure he has several roommates, but again I don't really care. I will not be renting it out again anytime soon. I have to do some repairs, so I'm hesitant to let anyone else in. I may let my cousin's daughter move in next year, but I know her and know she's respectful of people's property, unless my parents move in before then, but definitely no more renting to strangers. Story 3. Dad has been cheating on my mom even after she's passed away. For some context, my 22 male mother 48 female passed away from cancer in December 2022. My mom and dad male 48 had been married for over 25 years. My mom was diagnosed February of 2020, and the whole time my dad took care of her and never left her side. I respected my dad so much for doing that and for not leaving my mom's side. Around August 2023, I walked into my parents' room and looked at my mom's stuff, her nightstand, books, and things that she liked. On the nightstand, I find an open letter addressed to my dad requesting him to pay child support for not one, but 2 children. The interest balance was $4,000, and it looked like the request was made in 2022. And I guess they finally tracked my dad down. It all made sense now because during the summer of 2023, he had been begging me to work more hours or get a second job so that I could help out more with the bills. But I guess it was because of the child support. Also around my mom's 1-year death anniversary, I came home from work to see a vehicle in the driveway that's not familiar. As I come in through the garage door, I hear very loud and clear moaning coming from my parents' room. It's obviously my dad and a woman. I immediately left because I did not know what to do, and I'm in denial that my dad is doing something like this. Flash forward to January 1st. I see the same vehicle in the front of the house this time, and when I wake up in the morning, my dad must have invited her very late at night when we all went to bed on New Year's Eve. I'm curious to see who this woman is, so I prop up my phone at the windowsill pointing toward the vehicle and press record. I walk around the house, go outside, and let the dog out for a few minutes. I come back and the vehicle is gone. I stop recording the video on my phone and hope I caught something. I play back the video and see the vehicle unlock and the headlights flash. My dad's car slowly approaching the vehicle toward the front headlights adjacent from the vehicle. Then I see a woman, looks fairly young, jump off my dad's car from the back seat behind the driver's seat, get in the parked vehicle, and then drive off. My dad continues to slowly pull forward and immediately turns left into our driveway. Although the video is a little blurred, I could clearly see it was a young woman, but I do not recognize her. I am the only child who knows about all this information. I have 3 younger siblings. I've been thinking about going to therapy and talking to someone about it first, but before I want to confront my dad or talk about it with my siblings. I've also felt different around him, and I don't think that I could look or respect him the same way. I also do not know if the woman he's sleeping with is requesting child support or it could be an entirely different woman. Now for the comments. This person says, so I think you need to have a conversation with your dad about all of this and how you feel. You are still young and grieving your mother's death. You need help. As a parent, I would encourage you to speak to your dad and really tell him everything and how you're feeling. Please don't let this fester. It will only make your mental health worse. Please keep me updated on how you're doing. I have sons around your age. Yeah, what you caught just recently is not cheating. Not to be insensitive, but you can't cheat on someone who is dead. There's nothing wrong with starting or having another relationship after your spouse dies. It may seem weird to you because it was your mom, but it doesn't change the fact that it's perfectly okay for a widower to have a relationship after his wife dies. The child support thing is probably a completely different situation, but it sounds like you haven't even brought it to your dad, so you really have no idea what's going on. You have no proof that the lady is on the level, and you just found the letter. You have jumped to tons of conclusions and haven't tried to find out the truth with any of it. If your dad cheated on your mom and had kids, that's pretty bad. But you should still talk to him. The most important thing you need to keep in mind, though, is that your dad is not cheating on your mom now. It may be difficult for you to deal with, and that's perfectly understandable, but marriage vows say, "Till death do us part." Sadly, your parents are no longer together, and it's not wrong for your dad to move on. I agree, there's nothing wrong with moving on. I'll try to talk with my dad and see what he says about the child support and when that happened and if it happened during my mom's illness. I think I'm just feeling overwhelmed with this information and my brain automatically jumps to conclusions. I'd really like to talk with a professional so I can unpack conclusions. I'd really like to talk with a professional so I can unpack everything and not break down when I do confront my dad. Thank you.